Hello, welcome to the Psychic Kitchen podcast. It's me and Jimmy Davies, and my website is thomassawyer.com. I have a class this Sunday, mofos, 8 p.m. Eastern, communicating with ETs, ET attunements. So, Jimmy, how you doing today, my friend?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Thank you very much, brother. I've been outside all day, just in the woods, in the forest, as they say, and it's been good. How about you? What have you been up to?
I've just been sitting around, just doing some stuff, seeing clients, other stuff of that nature. I don't know. I was thinking about one thing I don't think enough healers and psychic people are talking about are healers healing other healers, like healing themselves. I mean,
Do you think
like I don't see a lot of psychics like doing the work on themselves.
You think there's something they ignore because they're so focused on healing other people that they forget about themselves?
Yes. So they're not really working on themselves, which I think leads to, I'm channeling over, which kind of leads to distortions in their fields. But one thing I've noticed a lot with clients is there is this, like a lot of, it's not every one of them, but it's some of them. Like there's a major like mental issue going on with people. Like they're feeling overwhelmed, they're disconnected. Like they're looking to change their lives, but they have to be willing to actually change their lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was speaking to someone, was it yesterday or the day before? I can't remember. But they mentioned about how people, you hear it in, I mean, elections are going on. I don't really take much notice of elections. I know they're going on, but that's about it. And people always want change. People are looking for change. People are striving for change. They're going to vote for change. All the parties are saying we can bring change. And that's what people want. Yeah, I find it ironic that people don't like change. They become uncomfortable with change. So it's sort of a contradiction. People want change, but they're afraid of change, and so those two things don't go together. And I don't know what the solution is. Have you got a solution?
Well, I think you have to almost put them in a situation where they have to change. Because when I see like homeless people that become billionaires, or billionaires become homeless and become, or whatever it is, and then become billionaires again, it's like there came some point. It's reminding me of my friend Carlos, which I'll get into in a second. But they hit some point where they actually just have to do something.
They're forced.
Like it gets so uncomfortable. There's no other way out. So that's what I keep seeing. So like even with my friend Carlos, when he was saved by a dolphin in the ocean and then went and saw Jesus, that was like a moment of change for him. But I see a lot of people around me and they get very stuck in these patterns and they say they want change, but they're comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. And you hear about, I've heard many stories about people who have, say, gotten into accidents, and it's forced them to make the change that they didn't want to make before, or they've gone bankrupt, or what have you, and they know they want to do something, but they're afraid to do it. And we've all been there. We're all, we don't necessarily like being uncomfortable. It's not something that we kind of strive for and aim for, but it's a necessary part of change, and it's almost like the quicker that we embrace the change and the quicker we accept we can feel uncomfortable, the less we are forced to have to do anything, because we're not allowing ourselves to get into that situation where we're being forced to do something. So it's almost like we reduce the suffering because we're embracing the change that we know that we have to do.
So even with myself, I was looking at my own life and just different things that I think I've been doing since I've been a kid. And I think that's really what people's subconscious minds come down to. Because I'm always studying people's patterns around me, even if I'm not doing it like consciously. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh, that and that and that. So I'm like, that's the reason they're that way. And that's the reason they're that way. And it usually comes down to something from childhood or like teenage years or something of that nature.
Hmm.
If 91 to 99% of your subconscious mind is controlling everything, then it's like those are ingrained thoughts in your mind.
Hmm.
Like, if I do this, this will happen. I think an excellent topic is the whole like men versus women thing. I keep talking about division, but it's like when I would go on a dating app, for instance, because I'll talk about this on TikTok. I don't really care about talking about it here. But the point is that these people are insane. I would talk to them. They were crazy. They would say the weirdest things to me. Like one woman was like, it was in her bio. She was like, I hate men. And then another lady, like, as soon as I talked to her on Bumble's like video app, the first thing she said to me, because she knows a psychic, she goes, so you're a scammer. And I was like, you opened up a conversation with that? I'm like, it's like already the cards are stacked against you because they're on a dating app. No offense to anyone that is on a dating app, because I'm still on Bumble, but I'm going to cancel it because there's no point to be on it anymore. But the point is like, I only met like 2 good people the entire time I was on these apps. So I'm just like, it's like all these people's perspectives. I'm sure you've seen what I've been posting on Facebook, like these Jesus pictures. Okay. Like they're crazy. But the point of it is I want to see how people react to it. So I post these crazy things because I want to see how they react to it. Because it's telling me where their mind's at.
What's been the how have they reacted in general? I've seen some of them, but I haven't seen all of the reactions.
Yeah, so I just got the idea because there was a bunch of people posting these crazy Jesus AI pictures, and then all the Christians would be like, they would say like, praise the Lord, praise the Lord, praise the Lord, and it would be like the most insane picture you've ever seen. So I was like, I'm just gonna repost them and see how people react. And some people are just like, they know it because they've heard about it, they've seen it, and some people don't. So it's like their reactions are just all over the place. Like this is horrible. This is amazing. Because it's so fake. I'm just like, why are you triggered by this? I don't understand. Like, what's the point of being triggered?
Yeah. Do you think we can control our triggers?
Yeah, but I think people on social media, they found this outlet. And I noticed this trend 2.5 years ago or 2 years ago. It was starting, at least on like MMA forums and other posts on TikTok and Facebook, where like people are posting very negative things. And everyone's like arguing, but they're intentionally posting. Because I watched this show called The Boys. It's like their #1 show on Amazon Prime. And they keep posting things to trigger people. But what they don't understand is that there are entire Chinese farms of engagement that has AI that are posting comments that will trigger you in the comments.
Yeah.
So they're not even real accounts. You're arguing with an AI. And the AI will never respond, but you'll see 50,000 comments underneath one poster.
Yeah.
And it's like they're purposely doing it to get engagement. So I'm like, they're purposely knowing how to tweak the algorithm to get more people to comment, which will get it shown more. But now even people are posting this. So like intentionally, like there's one like Lad Bible or something that posts a lot of stuff. They post negative things and they reach out to the person they're posting about. And they say, if you pay us money, we'll put like a more flattering shot of you on there instead of this horrible one. But sometimes they'll pay them because good publicity, bad publicity is publicity. So, and it just surprises me so much because it's like people fall for, they're so brainwashed. That's the thing.
It does seem to have become easier and easier to trigger people.
Yes. Yeah.
Bren says she feels like it's a void within them that arguing is on autopilot.
Yes. It's like they can't stop themselves.
Yeah, and
I've been through it.
take a lot of self-control. You have to know you're doing it to start off with, obviously.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you talked about elections. So we have one here. They just had a whole election. Well, like the first debate for Trump versus Biden. And to me, can't be kicked off here, so whatever. But the point is that it's like this is all staged to me when I watch it. I'm like, okay, so they're putting Biden on camera so he looks incompetent. I mean, everyone's saying it, even the Democrats. I don't vote, so I don't really care. I just wanted to see the craziness of it. And I was like, they're just going to replace the dude. They're setting him up to be replaced. So they're really messing with our minds by doing something they want to get accomplished. They know they can only do it by putting him on camera. But people have been saying this for 4 years about the guy. So it's like he's not all there. Like he says crazy things in press conferences and he starts talking about the 50s and stuff like that. It doesn't even make any sense. Anyways, because it's just funny to watch for me because I like to watch chaos sometimes. So, but I'm just like, why you guys keep, like, you're so tribalistic. It's got to be the orange-haired man or Biden. Which one is it? Like, can't be there like a fifth option, or is there only two options ever?
I guess there's only two, but you could argue that it doesn't matter who you choose; they're all ultimately the same.
Yeah. What do you do with that? What do you do?
Danielle, hey Danielle, she says it's a good way to get engagement through fear. Is still morally wrong, and I guess that's what it's about, engagement. You know, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen a video recently of it's almost like well, it was a wall of phones that connected up, and there's two people. Whether it is what they say is, you know, whether it is a sort of a bot farm or whatever it's called, but you can kind of imagine that there's nothing, that there's something to it, shall we say? Hey Kerry.
Yeah.
And it's all about just keeping people distracted and keeping people annoyed and argumentative and frustrated and
that brings down the energy of all the humans, like the whole entire collective of humans. So what does that do? I think it sends out a frequency what affects other humans. So if every human, if we're looking at it without any religious terms, just terms of consciousness frequency, and I'll ask Jimmy this because he's an expert on frequency, is if everyone's angry and sad and depressed, what does that do to everyone else?
We often, just in our very nature, we pick up the feelings and frequencies and vibrations of people around us, don't we? There's that good picture of 5 or 6 people in a pool, and or I think there was a video of a guy or of a person, maybe a man, maybe a woman, I can't remember, but they go throughout their day and they pick up on they interact with different people, and each time it's building up the energy that they take on, and they go from sort of, they leave their house and they're perfectly clear, they're kind of, you know, see-through, and go throughout their day, they interact with different people and they pick up this energy, and by the end of the day they're completely colored, you know, they're completely colored in, they're completely black through all of the energy that they've picked. And if we're radiating that out, then it's going to have an effect on everyone. It's got to, really. So
I went to my testosterone clinic yesterday, and I've had literally 15 issues with these people. They owe me about $180 or 60. But I've had so many issues over the last like 10 months. Like, I have to leave. I'm paying these guys a lot of money, like a lot of money. And I could go somewhere else and get it cheaper. And I told them, but I went in, and it took me an hour and a half to get there because one car was on fire. So, I got all that. That's fine. But when I got in, the girl who's not the problem person, there's one problem person, and she's the manager. So I've gotten into it with her a few times. Everyone gets into it with her. So, but the point is, I went in there and I said, like, I need to pick up my testosterone. I drove an hour and a half, and she looks at me and she's like, "Don't get an attitude with me." And I was like, "Oh shit." I was like, "She's not the problem." I was like, "I need to back up." It's like, "I'm sorry. I just drove an hour and a half. They ripped me off for $180 or $60 or whatever. And I'm tired of this. Like, I'm leaving." She's like, "Thomas," because she's talked to me before. She's like, "Thomas, everyone's having problems here. Like, they think it's my fault. It's not my fault."
Mm.
I'm like, "Well, how do you fix a problem with a clinic where you're paying like $320 for TRT replacement therapy?" I was paying $400 a month before that, and which is a lot of money. And I'm like, why don't they fix the problem? If everyone's complaining, where's the doctor? He owns the place. Where's he at?
That seems like the solution, really. But here's a question, because I mean, we've all experienced it, I imagine. We ring up or we go somewhere and we get someone on the front desk or a clerk or whatever, and there's an issue. So we kind of, even though we know it's nothing to do most of the time with the person who we're talking to, because it's to do with, it's managerial problem or whatever, we still we still let out our frustration and our anger or whatever on the person in front of us or on the phone, because it makes us feel good. But the question is, okay, we probably shouldn't do that because it's not their fault, and we're just trying to make ourselves feel better by getting rid of whatever we're feeling anger or frustration about the situation. But then how do we release that anger or frustration without kind of inflicting that and have someone else bear the brunt of it? Do we have to sort of suppress it and wait till we get home and do whatever, like hit the punching bag or something? Or
that's what I was getting. I was getting a lot of different. I was seeing people having sex. I was seeing people like punching bags, screaming in the woods.
We have to calm it. We have to remember where we are and what we're doing. But it takes that self-control, and we're not always the best when it comes to self-control. So.
No, we're not. And a lot of people are turning to different substances. I've seen that. But that's not the answer either. So it's just like I'm seeing that a lot with people too. Like, they're turning to substances, and you could call TikTok a substance, or Instagram or Facebook as well. It's an addiction for a lot of people. I mean, it serves a purpose, but it can also be an addiction. But it's like, I don't know what people need to do. I'm kind of flabbergasted, honestly.
Danielle's come up with a good suggestion. She says, make them laugh. Make them laugh. So if you're on the receiving end of someone who's just taking it out on you, then making them laugh. I mean, some people are just you can't make them laugh because they're in such a rage or whatever that is kind of not impossible, but it's very nearly impossible to get through to them. But I remember there's a guy who may have been around about the 2000s. He was a guy called Darren Brown, and he seemingly can do things that are psychic, but he says he's not psychic. So it's basically like cold reading, and it is kind of is a mentalist basically. Does tricks and with the mind, etc. And I remember I read some of his book. Well, you read one or two. He wrote, I think it was one. Might have been a couple, but I can't remember exactly. But it was a while ago. But he gave a situation because he knows a lot about the mind, and he gave an example. I think he was in France or I can't remember. Anyway, he was somewhere, and this guy late at night, came up to him and just started shouting at him for no reason. He just walked up to him and started shouting at him.
Yeah.
Darren Brown hadn't done anything to provoke him or anything like that. And he said he sort of went to his repertoire or his knowledge of the mind and how to sort of diffuse situations. And he basically said all he did was say something really random that made no sense. And he just commented on the size of the blood. I think it was, he said, like the height of the blade of grass in one county or in one country as opposed to another. And this, something really ludicrous and sort of irrelevant. And this guy stopped his shouting, and it made him think, because it took him out off his train of thought and out of his sort of zone, if you like. And eventually, he said the guy just sort of apologized and opened up and said he just had a really bad day. His wife had left him or something like that, and he just needed someone to take his anger on. But he was able to. Darren Brown was able to snap him out of that and stop him in his, in his tracks by distracting him from what he was doing. And it's the same thing. You make someone laugh or give them a compliment. Danielle's also said, "Oh, hey, Christina." Oh, Christina. Yes, Princess Tina. I
missed it.
Tina's here. Sorry, I didn't realize that was you, Christina. But yeah, so that's one way. If you're on the receiving end, is to make them laugh or say something really ridiculous. As to how, and I guess the responsibility of stopping yourself comes with yourself. You shouldn't necessarily have to rely on anyone to do it for you.
It's just pattern breaks. You get someone off their rocker, then it off where they're going. It will. I've seen people use that technique, but it will shift their focus. It's like NLP, I would think. I'm hearing neuro-linguistic programming.
I don't know much about.
You can get people to. I don't know a lot. I've been looking into it, but because I'm thinking about taking a course on it.
Hey,
but it shifts people really fast. Because I'm like, my methods are not always working, and I got to get somebody to shift the way they're thinking really fast, like in a really fast way. So Tony Robbins like an expert at these things. And you got to shift their thinking. So they're in this energy, and it's like, how do you shift it really fast without throwing them off, without them even realizing you're doing it? That's the key. So they're going into a story, and then you shift them real fast. I'm really good at pattern breaking people. So I was I know I could do it even I could do it differently, faster. And, pattern break them while they're talking, because they're telling. It could be a client, they're just going on this diatribe for 20 minutes, and I'm just stop. I'll say something totally just irrelevant to whatever the fuck they're saying, and they'll just stop, because I'm you just repeating a story. The more you tell yourself that story, you're just repeating it in your mind. It's becoming your reality. Why not change that reality? It seems pretty simple.
Yeah. And I have a habit of, if I see someone sort of, because I worked in an office for quite a few years of my life, you often see people bang their knees on the edge of the tables, or stub their toe on the table leg or whatever. And I don't know why, but I just find that hilarious. And people don't necessarily take me laughing at them after they've just hit the knee on the table in a very good spirit, in a very good way. They don't do. But I mean, this may not. I don't know what people think or what you think, but I see it as a way of changing the energy. Someone's just, obviously, I don't laugh if someone is seriously injured, because that's something else. But if they just knock their knee or stub their toe or something like that, nothing that's actually something minor, then maybe it's a form of changing the energy, because laughter, like as Danielle said, can change the situation, can sort of calm someone down or whatever. And I've seen videos recently of, of parents holding babies, and they'll pretend they'll smack the wall and then make out as if it was the baby that hit their head, when it was clearly not, because you can see the gap. They didn't. And the baby, even though it didn't hit his head, it will start crying as if it did, because that's the energy that the parent was giving out to the child. But then, same instance, in the same video or collection of videos, there's times when just accidentally a baby or whatever is hit his head or bumped something, and the parent has kind of tried to make out as if it didn't happen and laughed and, you know, tried to distract the baby. And the baby's been fine, even though it's actually hit his head. It hasn't cried. It's actually been okay. And so it's kind of like that example of changing the energy from something that could be one, but is changed to another just through the energy that is put into the situation, if you see what I mean. So
I feel people too are, it's like, even with social media now, it's gotten kind of out of control. You can take a clip of anything or a report, and you can literally, there was this girl that got super popular on TikTok called Hawk Tua. She's talking about spitting on a male thing. But she got super popular. Okay. But like, there were all these rumors that she was a teacher and she lost her job, like all this made up stuff. I don't know where people came up with it. And so they interviewed her, and it was like, she was like, no, I was working in a spring factory. Like she's made like millions and millions of dollars off this one TikTok video, and probably put on Instagram and Reels and all that, and Face or YouTube and all that. But the point is, everyone's duetting it, so it's like, you know, probably God knows how many millions she's made from this one video. But what I'm getting at is, it's like people can take one snippet of something you say and then totally change it and do another thing. And that's what scares me about society.
Yeah, just a throwaway comment that wasn't really, it was just done in fun or as a laugh or as a joke, and all of a sudden it's gone around the world, and that's just
I mean, dude, if one day I become famous, Jimmy, and they go back and look at my internet search history and how many people I fought with on Facebook, like they're gonna have millions of things to say about me. Like, they're like, why are you harassing all? Like, especially like a year ago. Why are you harassing all these people? But it's funny to me because I feel like I'm doing the right thing. Because I'll do one thing. Let's say it's an MMA post, and this guy will come in and he'll say, like, this guy is a total scumbag and he couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag. And I can't, the way I write it is hilarious. I can't say it the same way. But I write it, I was like, I saw this man take on 25 people in the cage, and he beat every person. I'll be talking about like Conor McGregor. You've probably heard of him. I go, rumor has it that he's going to Conor McGregor's gym to fight him face to face and film it. Because these people, like, there's no consequences to their actions. But I'll write it on there, and like people start laughing because I comment the same thing to every person. I mean, they catch on because they catch on the algorithm, but they laugh at it because it's like I'm pointing out the obvious. I'm like, you're just here to talk smack. Like, there's no backup. And then when someone so Sean Strickland was a former champion in the UFC, and he's very mentally deranged. He's funny though, and so the Navy SEALs were like, we could beat. Like, Sean Strickland's like, I can beat any Navy SEAL. So the Navy SEALs start commenting on TikTok and Instagram, and they're like, we could take out Sean Strickland. So Sean Strickland gets a Navy SEAL that's an MMA fighter in the ring, and he starts playing with him for 3 minutes straight. Like, just beating him up to the point where he can't knock him out. Just over and over and over and over. And everyone's like, this is horrendous. This is horrendous. But I was like, isn't this what they asked you to do? He just did him what they asked to do. He's like, I'll put him in the ring and I'll fight him. He's a professional. But he's not on the level of a champion in the UFC. But then everyone's like, that's wrong of him to do. And I'm like, but they started it. So he finished it. It's real world consequences. I don't think people realize that. So when I sorry, I'm interrupting you. When I see a person like Internet Sweetheart, he's had 26 accounts banned so far. He's got tattoos all over his face. He looks up people's criminal records. He puts them on video, and then he tattoos them on his body. It sounds crazy, but people love this guy. It's like ultimate real world implications. And people get so upset with him and they take him down. They try to sue him. But I'm like, you made the comment. Your picture's there. He just took it to a whole nother level. He's exposing your entire criminal history. It's all Freedom of Information Act. And then he's getting some tattoo on him if he decides to tattoo it. But then he exposes, he's like, you burned your child up in a car. He's like, you stole all this $5,000 from Walmart. He's like, why are you harassing me?
Yeah.
It's so crazy, but it's so funny to me because I'm like, real world consequences. And then they get very upset with them. And I'm just like, but should you get upset with them? Maybe you shouldn't have commented.
I guess people don't like being called out or found out.
No.
Or having to take responsibility for the things that they've done.
Yeah.
Michelle's come up with a good one. She says, you know what we're talking about, getting frustrated with people. She said, just tell them up front that you are frustrated. I know it's not their fault, but need to let them know the frustrating situation. And so they don't take it personally. And that's a good way.
The problem is, I think some people will take it personally, depending on your level of communication with them.
Yeah, most people do take things personally. Definitely.
Yes, if you just go up to someone and you say, like, I mean, your friend or with them. I mean, it depends on how good of friends you are with them. If I went up to one of my friends and did this, it wouldn't work. But if I went up to the other, it would. So, but me and that friend have kind of a thing where we can talk about anything. So if we have an issue, we both don't take it personally. But a lot of people will take it personally. And then it's like, that's not even what I said. Like a friend I met out here, it's a female, like I told her that because she was talking to me and she was like, sometimes I feel like you don't care what I'm talking about. And I go, well, the thing is I have ADHD. This is communication. I have ADHD. So sometimes I'm not going, like I'm going to change the subject and not realize I'm changing the subject because my brain's running so fast. So, and she was like, oh, that makes sense. She's like, if I didn't know that, I would think, yeah, I would have thought differently, but that makes a lot of sense. So that's just the thing is that you have to have that communication. Because there's all these stories in people's minds, you know, like of what you're saying.
Do you think we should take anything personally?
No. No. I think it ruins people's lives. I took a lot of things personally a year ago. You saw that. But the point is, I just kind of realized none of it mattered anymore. And just like none of this matters. Like, is it feeding my life or is it destroying my life?
I think taking things personally generally means that, because we never really speak about taking things personally in the context of, say, someone gives us a nice compliment or whatever. That's just kind of a given that we almost take that personally. But no one seems to. I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, I took that personally." I took someone giving me a compliment personally. They don't complain about that when it comes to being personal. But it's only when it's a criticism or a derogatory comment, then there's an issue. So it's kind of one.
But maybe they should look at it internally if it's from someone they care about at least, and go, is there some truth to this?
Well, that's
Because
what
I
I
do that
want.
with my friend Chris all the time. When he says stuff to me, and sometimes it's just too out fucking left field, but a lot of times there is some truth in there.
Mm.
And I asked him, I said, bro, sometimes you come in way too hard. And he goes, well, you have to understand that as hard as I am on like everyone else, I'm way harder on myself. That doesn't excuse it, but it makes me understand why he's doing what he's doing.
I do, yeah. I do wonder, and I've noticed sort of this about myself over the years. There were times when I used to take things personally, and if I was to get called a name or get called something, then it would bother me, and I would think about it, and I wouldn't like it. But then I got to a stage where I could be called the same thing, same name, or what have you, and it wouldn't bother me at all. And so I thought, well, what's different, and why the change? And so I thought, well, maybe when we get called a name or what have you, and it does bother us, maybe it's something we need to look at within ourselves, as in why that is bothering us, or is there some truth in it, like you say? Because if we were totally happy with ourselves, or if it didn't bother us, or if it wasn't true what they said, then we wouldn't give it any consideration. It wouldn't bother us at all. We would just think, oh well, that's what you think, kind of thing. But I don't agree with you. So if we allow something, if something does bother us, then we shouldn't necessarily just dismiss it, unless we can, unless it doesn't bother us. So if something does bother us, then there's something to look at, and to figure out why it bothers, because there might be some truth in it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
If there wasn't any truth in it, then it wouldn't bother us.
Yeah.
And I kind of, oh yeah, that's why.
People don't like being called out, Jimmy.
No.
That's the thing.
No, true.
But I feel like that's where your freedom's going to come from. I don't know if it's like I saw a shrink in my 30s and I was in a very abusive relationship. And this girl I'll just give you a breakdown like really fast. So if I did one thing she didn't agree with, she would, and I'm so stubborn and argumentative sometimes, but I knew I was in the right. So she would spend 3 hours telling me what I did wrong. And I would tell her that she was full of shit over and over and over and over for 3 hours. Until eventually I was like, if I don't agree with this crazy lady, she's never going to shut up. So after 3 hours, I'm like, fine. I'm literally 3 hours of this, like every weekend. We went out for a year and a half. She was very mentally unstable. She's like, Thomas, you're bipolar. It turns out she was bipolar. I already knew that. And so I went to a shrink. And the thing was, the shrink was very direct with me. Nice, direct. I like the direct approach with people. They're like, he's like, this is what's going on. What are you doing? But he wasn't mean. You could tell where he was talking from. So he convinced me in 2 sessions to leave her, and then she left me because I think she could see me kind of going in that direction. Like I was like, I'm done with this. This is crazy. But it's like I needed someone there to point out the obvious instead of like hamper me in a way.
Yeah.
Like I needed someone to go, this is bullshit. Like, what are you doing in your life? And I think that's what people need. Even as psychics, I think that's why a lot of people see me. Sometimes it's just for their gift stuff and, all that kind of stuff and energy work. But sometimes they need me to be rough with them. And I don't really want to be rough with them.
Yeah.
But I just do it anyway.
Yes, I find that people actually appreciate that more than being just told what they want to hear, or that they're this, or that they got this gift, or they got that gift. Sometimes they like it. They like the raw truth, shall we say? And it actually helps them more because you're not just pandering.
Sometimes you literally have to hit them in the head with like an energetic baseball bat. I don't like doing it. honestly. But it's just like, fine. It's like, okay, it's what you're paying me to do, so I'll do it.
Accountability, Danielle says. Also, one thing that I noticed when I just going back to what I was saying about the name calling and stuff like that, when I noticed that when I stopped being sort of reactive to the name calling, then people stopped calling me names.
Yeah,
because I wasn't reacting.
Putting out a frequency.
Yeah, I was reacting. This is annoying. This is triggering to me. So therefore, that's the frequency I'm putting out. So, but as soon as I stopped being bothered by it, then it stopped happening. So
yeah, and I'll see weird stuff here. It's kind of a little off, but more on what you're talking about. Like at the hotel, it's a very nice hotel compared to the rest I've been to. But I have noticed very late at night, because I'll be up sometimes till 3 a.m, and I'll notice, like, I go outside to smoke or something, and I'll see like someone very heavily addicted to meth or a prostitute or something, and it's just like their frequency is just crazy. And then my guides are like, open your wings and put your wing through them. And I'm like, seriously? Like, I don't know. This is crazy. I don't want to pick up that energy. I don't want to have to transmute that, or whatever it is I need to do with it. I don't. But I see it, and when I in these hotels, I think purposely I put myself in really bad environments just to see what people's lives were like. So in these hotels, and my friends have told me to leave for months, and even other clients, is that, but it's like teaching me something about people.
Yeah.
Because I see some of them at their worst, some of them at their best, but it's like they're all trying to better themselves somehow. Not all of them, but some of them. So I just noticed that. So it's like, I don't think their perception of what their reality is only from their perception. But if you go to like the worst places that you can find, then it changes your perception of everything.
Yeah.
Because you see what people are like at their wits' end.
Yeah, and what, in the same time, what we would do, or what someone considers to be horrific, a horrific situation might be just normal for someone because they live it every day. And
yeah. Imagine you're a girl at 12:30 at night, this black girl, and she's throwing her arms all over the air, trying to get to someone in the hotel to get her whatever it is she needs, some substance, not something you buy in a store, and in another state, but just like something really crazy. And you can tell just by looking at it. And I'm just like, her life is far worse than anything I could ever imagine. Like, I couldn't even compare my life to hers. And then I'll see people like they'll be like, well, I've got all this going on, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. And I'm like, are you a meth head? That's what I want to say to them. Because there's a whole different logic here. No, you're doing pretty good. You're just not looking at it the right way.
Yes. I guess they say it's appreciating what you have, I suppose, isn't it? That's what it comes down to. And where your attention goes. But been I don't know. I don't. Do you have any? I don't know quite how to start this, but there's a guy called Jerry Marzinsky. I've been watching a couple of his sort of interviews because he's a psychologist and he deals specifically with paranoid schizophrenia, and I find talks very interesting. I don't know if you've seen anything about that, and I'm by no means I'm an expert or anything like that. I've just seen 2 podcasts, but he talks about voices and stuff like that, and differentiating between the voices and our thoughts, and how people let the voices in, how these sort of entities come in. And I find it all quite fascinating. If anyone is interested in that kind of thing, then Jerry Marzinsky is the guy's name. And
does he say they're entities or they're actually fractions of the personality?
Well, he says they're entities,
I kind of agree with him. I kind of agree with him.
I do wonder, because it made me think of sort of the way that parasites sort of interact with our inness and kind of supposedly can make us do things and think certain things. And I wonder whether there's any connection there between sort of whether it's something within us directing us to do certain things and talking to us, or whether it's actually something outside of us that's come into us or can communicate with us from the outside. And
well, let's look at it from a logical standpoint. So the cordyceps mushroom, given the right temperature for an ant, now people take it because it forces oxygen into your body, okay, and it does nothing to people. But if an ant gets around this cordyceps mushroom, it will start growing out of its head and take its body over. And then it'll run around, it'll control the ant to get near the anthill. And so the other ants got smart about this, and they're like, okay, it's taking over our anthill, so we're going to kill the thing and put it in a tree. So they put it in a tree. Well, ants are always moving everywhere anyways. So eventually the cordyceps gets smarter, and it goes, I'm just going to let off spores that explode out of the head. So if they walk across the spores, they're going to pick me up. And it's going to start all over again. But these mushrooms, they say if they gave them about 20 degrees more in temperature, they could probably do it to a human.
Really? Good deal.
But we can use them. But if there was like, I don't believe in global warming. I know it's going to piss some people off. But if there was a warming period phase on Earth, then it would change like that whole thing. And they would start taking over people's brains, or toxoplasma. Have you heard of toxoplasma, Jimmy?
I think so.
Yeah, so it gets into a rat. It makes the rat attracted to cat urine because the only way it can spread is by getting in the brain of a cat. And then it gets it to a human, which makes them like even more aggressive than normal, especially males. But it can only breed in the brain of a cat. So like these things are influencing people. And I would argue that certain frequencies that governments, if I can say that, are putting out, and other things they're doing, chemicals, whatever they're putting in stuff. Even like this stuff right here. I can show this. It sells at a gas station. You gotta be 18 and up. So this is legal weed. Okay. And I know two people that do this. They putting something in this stuff because I tried it. And because I know one of my friends is highly addicted to it, and he's not a regular smoker. And another one of my friends is he's getting addicted to it. And I had to have a conversation with him like 3 times about it. And I was like, bro, there's something in this stuff because I did it. And the next day, I just wanted to keep doing it. I was like, this doesn't make sense. I see it right away. I was expecting to see it too. But he's like, I keep thinking about it. I'm like, well, they're putting something in there to make you want it. Why don't you just go get some regular weed? Like I can find someone for you. I didn't say that, officers. Anyways, but the point is that it's not that hard to do in this day and age. So, but it's like people don't realize they're like poisoning themselves. They're changing their minds. They're putting all these chemicals in their body, and it's changing them.
Apparently, amphetamines are the number one sort of narcotic or whatever to lower or to allow these entities to come in and start sort of trying to manipulate the body.
Well, let's look at Monster Energy drink. That's basically an amphetamine. It's loaded with stimulants.
Yeah. And that's what this guy Jerry Marzinsky has sort of found out for years and years that he's been doing this, and he's worked in prisons and stuff like that, in psych wards in prisons and everything. And I wonder. I mean, it's kind of generally considered that we're spiritual beings. We're just sort of this body is just a host for our spirit, our soul, or whatever. So if you think, well, if we can come into this body, then it makes you wonder whether who else can have access to it. And you see channelers, obviously, who actually allow another entity or spirit or what have you to completely take over their body. And they obviously have to get to a certain frequency to come in. And I don't know, it made me think, well, because one of the guys who was in the interview on the podcast as well was saying that on one side of things, people who hear voices are considered mentally ill, mentally unstable, schizophrenics. But then in another sphere, in the sort of the spiritual sphere, they're called channelers, and there's no real difference between the two. In like at its core, it's just that one's sort of
spiritual people don't want to hear that, Jimmy. But go ahead.
I know, but never mind. And what was I going to say?
It's called two different things.
Yeah. In one sort of vilified, and the other one's accepted. And why is that?
I think that there's there is the law. It's one of the universal laws. So if a being approaches me, lately I've been working a lot with Asterians. So if a being approaches me, I ask them 3 times. There's something about the Trinity. It goes beyond Christianity. But asking, it's like the number 3. So you ask it 3 times what it wants, and it has to answer correctly all 3 times. And if it messes up, it's not what it says it is. If you have any distinction that it's something that shouldn't be there. Now, I'm very hesitant about letting any beings in my body. I will not play that trance channel game of channeling anything except maybe my higher self. And other versions of me, my guides are saying. So, from other lifetimes. So I'm very hesitant. But if it's like Archangel Michael or something, it's such a high vibrational energy. It's different. But people need to be really careful what they're letting in. Because it's like TikTok or any of these apps. Some of these people just start doing it without any training.
You need. I feel like you need a good degree and a high level of discernment to know what is your thoughts, what is your own energy, and what is something that's outside of you trying to what is someone else's or something else's thoughts or influence or what have you. And I guess you can only doing that by truly knowing yourself and in a sense it's about I guess it's about stilling the mind so that you can discern, you know what are your own thoughts. And I mean I sometimes it doesn't happen very often, and it hasn't happened for a while, but you'll be laying in bed just about to go off to sleep, and I'll suddenly hear someone or something say my name, but that'll be it. And I'm thinking, don't you imagine that? Because I definitely didn't think it. I was definitely a voice, but that's called clairaudience, isn't it? Basically, in spiritual terms, that's basically clairaudience, and where you can actually hear a voice that's not your own, and it's strange. But that's it.
But I've had beings try to talk to me. I think it's this hotel. There's so many people coming in and out, and maybe it's preparing me for something I'm hearing, to deal with really, really different kind of things. But sometimes I'll be outside just smoking, and I'll hear something talking to me, and I'm like, "You're not one of my guides. Get out of here!" And I just kill it. But I had a conversation with a friend last night. She was like, well, I'm being told when I get rid of these entities that, I need to talk to them and figure out why they're there. And I'm like, why don't you just fucking kill them? I was like, end of story. They dead.
Mm.
So I got all animated. But I'm like, they're dead. Like, why do you want to have a conversation with a demon or something? Like, what's the point? Just kill it. Walk away. You did your job.
Right.
Like, why do you want to talk to it? It's just going to try to confuse you.
It's just interesting, I suppose. But Lauren says that when you're hearing voices and acting for the betterment of yourself and other people, then that is channeling. Whereas if the voices are telling you
What
to
is
hurt
the
others or
betterment
whatever,
of
that's meant.
self? That's the key, Jimmy. What is the better? See, this is and no offense, Lauren, this is a perspective. So what technically is the betterment? Because I'm sure there are beings that are neutral that would give you elevated messages to get into somebody's mind, and then they could flip the script.
Well, that's basically what this guy Jerry was saying. Hold on. That they start off giving nice messages or whatever to get your trust and everything like that, and then they slowly change. So it's just about discernment, and I guess I just found it interesting and fascinating, and it sort of changed my view of things and the whole channeling aspect, and how to, because the thing is, I guess it's just awareness and being aware of what your thoughts are, how they're kind of manifesting, what you think that you're thinking, and I guess just learning how to navigate through that, and whether something doesn't feel right, because I think we can mainly feel whether something, like you said, you knew instantly that something wasn't right when and it's about not just completely trusting just because you think we're channeling something or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean that it has our best interests, and I guess they're there to perform a function and a service to us in some degree, to help us to be more in tune with ourselves and our own energy. But
well, I would see people on, I don't want to say names, but there's one guy I'm thinking of in particular. He's very good at marketing. A lot of people watch him. I don't like his energy at all. And it tells me a lot when people work with him, what they're willing to do with their business. I'm not going to say too much about this, but the point is that he lets beings into his body. He doesn't know what the fuck they are. He doesn't know what he's doing. Then people are coming to me and they're like, can you disconnect me from this person? There's a lot of other creators I don't want to name because I don't want to be on their crosshairs of their militant cult following. And they're like, Thomas, can you disconnect me from this person? I'm like, yeah, sure. But don't go around telling your friends I did this. Like, you pay me for a service. It's confidential. So once you're disconnected, you go. Like you block. It's like an ex-boyfriend. Like you block, you walk away, you just let it go. I have to do that with clients all the time. I'm like, okay, well, you want me to remove this cord from this person, so I will remove the cord, but you have to block them and never speak to them again, at least for 9 months. The look on their faces sometimes. But I'm like, you're coming to me for this service. So I can disconnect the energy, but it's like, don't let them back in when they call you.
Yeah.
Because then you're just going to have to come back to me again.
Exactly.
So
Kristen says, how my guides explained it was work one arch angel at a time, or she said one arch at a time, and get to know each energy. If it's not right, then stop what you're doing and assess the situation, basically.
Yeah. Was that Tina?
No, that was Kristen.
Okay.
Kristen Longino.
Oh, okay. That's team. So, you said she was here earlier. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a million ways to do it, but you
Mm.
got to be. There's a lot of archangels that are bad.
Mm.
So, I mean, whatever your perspective of the word bad is, but they're lower vibrational. It's like Enochian angels. I guess I can kind of rant on this. Enochian angels are like John Dee, and it's the whole thing behind that. But essentially, Enochian belief became the Golden Dawn with Aleister Crowley later on. But originally, it was Enochian. So there's all these different angels. Well, some of them are really good. Some of them are really bad. Some of them are really neutral.
Mm.
So if I go through a list of angels, I can sit there and go without even looking at what their name, what they do. I'm like, yes, yes, no, no, yes, no, 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 yes, no, 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 yes.
Mm.
And it's like certain ones do different things. Now the question becomes too with angels, because I take people to the angelic realm and stuff. Like I had a client yesterday. I took her to see God.
Mm.
And I was like, how come they allow Syrians here?
Mm.
Because I had to call them the Syrians.
Mm.
And I was like, but I'm in heaven.
Mm.
How are the extraterrestrials getting in heaven?
They've obviously been very good.
But I'm like, what's the lot? I don't understand. Maybe I'm not understanding all this correctly.
Mm.
Instead of looking at negatively, I'm like, how does this make sense?
Mm.
Like if I can call any being in anywhere, thank God I'm not dark. But because I could do some crazy shit if I was. So yeah, it would just be like, why? It's just like, why can these Syrian extraterrestrials get into heaven? And because normally I just call in angels and like deities and stuff like that.
Mm.
But I don't know. I had a friend. She's a little witchy, crazy, manipulative woman. But the point is that she would. She was convinced there was like heaven was a highway for light and dark entities. It was like an airport.
All right. Mm.
Of all these different passages.
All right. Yeah.
And depending on where you went was where you went.
Mm. All right.
Even the Bible, it says, well, even in the Bible, it says, my mansion has many houses.
Mm. Okay.
So, or something like that.
Mm. Possibly.
I know we're going off in different directions.
That's all right. Danielle says, I think she's referring to when you mentioned it Enochian. She says, is that Anunnaki? Were they different?
No, Enochian is John Dee. You can look up Enochian. It's Enochian. You also have the Hawthorne angels, the Hathor angels. Sorry, Hathor angels. Hathor. They're Egyptian angels. So there has to be theoretically probably about 50 different species of angels, if not.
Are you talking about the Ars Goetia, the Solomons, the 72 Solomon?
I'm not sure because I haven't researched Hathor that much, but they're supposedly connected with Egypt.
Because I think John Dee, from what I've certainly seen brief things on it, but Aleister Crowley was kind of in, obviously, I think it was he who used the Solomon's sigils. I think they're called the Solomon's.
Well, the problem with Crowley was that, so you had John Dee, and him and a schizophrenic made an angel board. And they got all their messages through this angel board. This guy, the schizophrenic, was extremely psychic, but extremely unhinged. And so later on, if I remember right, because I had to go to the Secret Society's podcast, because they would lay this out for like 2 hours of the whole story. And Crowley came in eventually and took it over kind of by force after one of the two people formed it, but one died. And I could be getting a little bit of this wrong. But essentially, he took it over and he made it the Golden Dawn. And the Golden Dawn, like Crowley was like an idiot. He was like going around. There's a house in Savannah where this girl got a little girl in like the early 1900s was playing with an African American girl, and her father told her not to, and she did it again. So this is going to get a little dark, guys, for those watching. And this is like their premiere part of their ghost tour. Okay. And I went to the house and I'm like watching all this weird shit going on, and I'm laughing, and everyone else is freaking out. But so he tied his daughter to a chair and left her there for 3 days, and of course she died. And so apparently what happens is that occasionally a grown woman will run out of the house and start screaming at people. But it's not really, it's a ghost of this little girl. So Aleister Crowley, then another kid moves in from Savannah, like college, and he's messing with a Ouija board, and he's trying to go into other dimensions. He just disappears one day. In the middle of his house, he just disappears. No one can find him. So Aleister Crowley hears about this house in central Savannah, and he's like, I want to make a Church of Satan here. And they're like, there is no way we are putting a Church of Satan in the middle of Savannah. And anyway, so they didn't let him have the house. But now there's like normal people, and the ghost, they're okay with the ghost people getting a certain distance from the house, but they don't want them to get close to it. But it's like, who knows if they still have issues, because even the ghost person was like, I've seen this lady run out like countless times. And like just, and I was reading her, I was like, she's not lying either when she was saying this. Like, she literally runs out and starts screaming at people, and they can see her. And it's the ghost of the little girl that got killed. But there's all those stories in Savannah. It's just overloaded.
Yeah, you told me about Savannah before.
Yeah.
So, interesting. Well, should we finish on that note?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining us and interacting and everything like that. Hey, Thomas, do you want to remind us of any classes or whatever?
Yeah, I've got a class this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, ET attunements and learning about ETs. It's going to be on my website, thomassawyer.com. It's $58. I kind of priced it cheaper. And I priced it cheaper than most classes. And then if you want to make a session with me, thomassawyer.com, you can use the code SUMMER with a capital S. You get 50 off. I do mentorships, psychic guidance, mediumship, energetic. I have to be careful what I say on camera. I help people with health problems. I'm a triple Reiki master. I have many different attunements and healing, and past life readings, all that stuff.
Marvelous. Danielle says she'll be there. Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah,
you are too. Right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, brother. We'll see you soon. Au revoir.
Peace.